Brexit Britain to the world.
Thursday, the 3rd of August 2017, the BBC is getting lambasted for being biased in its coverage after the Brexit vote. It was an anti-leave whitewash, according to the Daily Mail, who are just a little bit in favour of Britain getting the hell out of Europe. Yesterday, of course, they headlined with news of chaos at airports. I say, of course, if you've got any sense, of course, you would steer clear of the Daily Mail. But you may have seen it on the supermarket shelves, talking about chaos at our airports because of increased security checks in Europe. Surprise, surprise, we did vote to leave the EU. Surely it comes as no surprise that constraints to the free movement of people mean it's harder to move around. We're going to have to get used to this. There will be more checks. Maybe they just thought the whole free movement thing just worked one way. You know, we're going to stop people coming in, but because we're British, we'll be free to roam anywhere. And today their story against Remoaners is that BBC Radio 4, they reckon last year listeners were 2.5 times more likely to hear a pro-EU voice than a pro-Brexit one. They reckon there's bias. Of course there's bias, because the pro-Brexit ones, you know, were probably speaking less sense. Radio 4 probably didn't want to put them on. I think, actually, the Radio 4 might have helped them by not having them on, because the more they're on, the less strong their argument. If they had to explain the detail behind their slogans, I reckon Radio 4 would have been making life much more difficult for them. Liam Fox is one of the people complaining, the International Trade Secretary, Liam Fox. He's written to the BBC complaining that it had chosen not to report on positive economic figures published by his department. I wonder what they would be. Positive economic figures. Is it the fact that the stock exchange has gone up, like it has everywhere in the world? Like the United States, for example, which was never part of Brexit. Worth mentioning, of course, that here it's almost entirely because of the devaluation of the pound, which is a consequence of Brexit. Because companies with foreign earnings who report their earnings in sterling appear to be doing rather better than they were a year ago. So the stock exchange, which is driven a lot by computers and algorithms, sees these increased earnings, pushes the price up. You know, the price to earning ratio adjusts and the share price goes up. But bad news for those companies based here who import stuff, now paying greatly increased prices. They're feeling the margin squeeze. They're having to carry those extra costs because otherwise the stuff they're trying to sell would be too expensive and no one would buy it. That's really happening. That's not helping businesses based in Britain. But it's great for businesses that just happen to deal in sterling, but are doing most of their work offshore. So there we are. Liam Fox, sorry, the BBC not reporting on the positive economic figures. I went and had a look at your website, and the only one I can see about the economy and Brexit is one from September last year saying the UK should become the global leader in free trade. It says, we did have free trade within one of the biggest markets in the world, of course. Well, we still have, but, not for long. This press release from September last year says the Prime Minister intends to use the summit to robustly champion free trade while underlying the need to do more to spread the benefits and build a fairer economy for all. That sounds fantastic, doesn't it? A fairer economy for all. Let's run through the wheat fields and celebrate. A free economy, fairer for all. Doesn't seem like that right now, does it? Doesn't seem fair for those who are seeing their wages go down. But hey, we're going to fix it all with free trade, with all over the world. We are going to be the free trade champions. I wonder whether some of the people who voted for Brexit because they saw about it on the side of a bus, I wonder if they actually think free trade means things will actually be free. Because they haven't thought this through a great deal. This is the press release that talked about having a free trade deal with New Zealand. We've already spoken to them about it, apparently, and also one with Australia, which is great, isn't it, that we can replace having 600 million people on our doorstep for whom we do have free trade, for whom it makes perfect sense to export our agriculture and bulky materials in both directions because they only have that short hop across the channel, versus shipping it around to the far side of the world for a market of less than 30 million people who already have their own sheep and cows, thank you very much, and their beef is somewhat better than ours. So a beat up again from the Daily Mail about bias from the BBC. And where do these accusations come from? They come from the DUP, the Conservative Party's new friend, all of a sudden. From Ian Paisley Jr., who talks of the BBC providing one-sided, doom-laden reporting with all the good news coming despite Brexit. I don't know if he talks like his dad, but I thought I'd give it a shot. So yeah, one-sided reporting. So what is the good news? I'm not sure about this. Our balance of trade still significantly in the red. Unemployment just about as low as it was before. It's not really picked up. And any pickup has been because of more part-time work, 0 hours contract. We've got low wage growth. And that's, Brexit or not, that's happening around the world. But it is making people worse off than they were before they voted Brexit, thanks to high inflation brought about by a devalued pound, which is directly the result of the Brexit decision. So I'm not sure what the good news is. People are worse off. The economy is not growing. So, look, it's not good news either, Mr. Ian Paisley Jr. for Northern Ireland. I can't believe that you're thinking the Northern Ireland economy is booming. Well, maybe it is booming, but it's booming helped by a lot of EU money. In fact, a huge amount of money from the EU. Since 1995, the EU has paid 1.3 billion euro to support peace in Northern Ireland and the border counties in the Republic of Ireland. Just 1.3 billion. They've had another 205 million euros over the last 7 years from the European Social Fund, more than 2.5 billion euros over 7 years from the Common Agricultural Policy, and much, much more. It makes the billion or so that they're getting from Theresa May look like a piddle in the ocean. And all that money is going to be pulled. So it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, how Northern Ireland does and how people like Mr. Ian Paisley Jr., how much are they going to push for more money from British taxpayers when the well dries up from Europe? And that we know that is exactly what's going to happen. However much was paid into the EU, whatever the figure was that was on the side of that bus, which was a gross figure, of course, so it ignored the money that was coming straight back in subsidies and the like. But whatever that figure is, much of that figure is now going to be picked up, first of all, by increased administration costs in Britain, because we've got to pass all of these laws. We're going to need more politicians and civil servants, because we can do bureaucracy in this country even more than the Europeans can, I suspect. So we're going to grab that opportunity. Then, of course, some of the cost is going to be picked up by subsidies that we're going to need to replace. Money that was coming from Europe will now have to come from the British government. And then the rest is going to be paid by businesses who find their imports are more expensive. And so they're going to have to swallow some of the input costs, or they're going to have to pay a 15% tariff on their exports to the continent. All those exports that are going 50 miles across the English Channel, they're going to be 15% more expensive with a tariff. And there will be a tariff. That you were not going to have a free trade deal with Europe. Not in a great hurry anyway. Why would they? So an increased cost to private business that was paid by the government, but now because of the removal of the free trade agreement with Europe being part of the common market, businesses are now going to have to pay 15% tariff, which is going to sum all of that up. We've talked about this in the past. That comes to close to half of the total cost that the government was paying. So 50% of this cost for Europe is just being transferred from the government to the private sector. And the Daily Mail wonders why Radio 4 is biased. Maybe it's because their audience aren't Daily Mail readers. They've got a bit more nous, perhaps. And they don't believe something just because it's written on the side of a bus. Mind you, what a hugely effective piece of advertising that was. I can't believe everyone now isn't just advertising on the side of buses to promote everything, because it works so well. We all remember the side of the bus. We didn't see the newspaper ads or the TV ads or the online ads. A waste of money. Just advertise on the side of a bus. The bus companies should become the richest companies in Britain, I would have thought. Perhaps right now we need to promote the Chris Evans Breakfast Show. He's just lost 500,000 listeners for the vast amount of money he's paid. But he wasn't pro-Brexit enough. I'm sure that's why he's lost listeners, because he wasn't pumping the Brexit line. So probably we should just close down the BBC, shouldn't we? It's way too expensive. We just read the Daily Mail. They can tell us how to think.
Radio of the UK. From a Brexit Britain to the world.